point. In your mind, remember where you reached, okay? Because it's going to be a reference point the next time. Everybody's done that? You can come back if you're done. You have to remember kaha tak haath mera. Yeah, everybody remembers that? Okay. Now everybody is going to close their eyes. And I'm going to do some mumbo jumbo in your heads. Okay. Now what you do is, now you imagine. Now you don't do it. You just imagine yourself again turning. Uncle, eyes closed. So now again you imagine yourself, only and only imagine yourself turning again and reaching that same point till which you had reached earlier. And we thought you can't go possibly beyond this point. After you reach that point, eyes closed. After you reach that point, push yourself a bit more. Imagine करना है ना, कुछ भी imagine कर सकते हैं. So imagine yourself turning a bit more. थोड़ा सा और turn करके, थोड़ा सा और push करके, और धक्का मार के. Now come back. Open your eyes. You can open your eyes. Raise your arms again in the T and turn back. And this time see if you've gone a bit further or maybe a lot further than what you had done before. Yes. You can take a seat. Everything takes it. I want the show of hands for those people who think they did not go beyond the same point. Because sometimes for some people it doesn't work. Okay, I think everybody did. Okay, yay, successful. So what just happened? This is just another example of how our mind can limit us and liberate us at the same time. There are all these psychological barriers we all hold inside us. We are human and that's how we work, right? And what just happened here? What is the magic which happened? It's very simple. So there is this conscious part of our brain, which is just 8%. And then there is this unconscious part. जहाँ पे memory store होती है जो चीज़ हमें पता नहीं है और बीच में एक part होता है just called the subconscious. The subconscious is like the middleman. It interacts between the conscious and the unconscious. And the subconscious is a little foolish, so to say. It does not understand the difference when you actually do something or when you imagine doing it. It does not understand the difference. So for it, it is the same thing. So right now, when you did something, it marked it as event A. You imagined doing it, marked it as event A1, right? And it learned कि अब मैं इस point तक जा सकता हूँ. And it sent that message to your conscious mind कि अब तुम इस point तक जा सकते हो. So the next time you actually did it, so the conscious mind responded to that thought of the subconscious mind and said कि हाँ अब मैं इस point तक जा सकता हूँ. So that's the reason I started with this activity is ज्ञान देना बहुत आसान है, but when you experience something, it impacts. It is important. Okay. We're going to start the presentation. Can I have a slide changer?
You don't have that.
You don't have it. Okay.
I'll do that.
So the message from this activity is you can always do more than what you think you can. Right? The mind is your. I always like to say that the mind is your greatest slave and the worst master. And people usually overestimate what they can do in a day, but underestimate what they can do in a lifetime. Now, before I start, and I have 3 topics to discuss, I'll be discussing 3 segments, and before I start this segment, there's this quote I want to start with, but it's a quote by one of my favorite scientists of all time, Richard Feynman. He was an American scientist, and he says that the first principle is you must not fool yourself, and you must remember that you are the easiest person to fool. All of us in our own heads think, मैं बहुत शाना हूँ, मैं बहुत smart हूँ, मुझे कोई बुद्धू नहीं बना सकता. I know everything, but that's not how it works. And we're going to see how today the brain is actually very easy to fool. Everybody has heard of the Aesop fable, right? So there's this fox who's roaming around, and it sees these grapes, and it decides that I would like to taste these grapes. They look tasty. So it starts jumping to grab them, eat them. It jumps. But it doesn't seem to reach it. So the fox is disappointed. And from disappointment, the fox moves to bitterness. And it's like, it's a khatte hai, mujhe kaun sa iनको khana tha. Right? Now when you look at it, is this something that all of us do at certain points in our lives? With things big and small. कोई चीज़ चाहिए, नहीं मिल पाई. So either we say that I'm a failure, or in order to protect ourselves, we say कि यार ये तो वैसे भी ऐसे ही है, मुझे कौन सा कोई फर्क पड़ेगा नहीं मिला, right? Now what is happening here is that point where the fox felt bitterness, sad, disappointment, because it did not get what it wanted. There's a term for it in psychology, and before I tell you the term, we'll see how it actually works. So this first thought, idea, value, belief, information, right? And in this case of the fox, it was the desire to eat those grapes. And then comes in B. B is maybe an existing idea inside you, right? Or a new idea, which is B. So in this case, B was the inability to eat those grapes. And when A meets B, and there's a clash, that clash, that imbalance between the two leads to a sense of discomfort. Maybe not at a physical level, but at a psychological level, andar hi andar acha nahi lagta. That discomfort is there, that disharmony is there, that dis-ease is there. And this discomfort, this disharmony, this dis-ease is what we call cognitive dissonance. Let's not worry too much about what the technical meaning is, because this is not supposed to be a technical presentation. Dissonance, the word, I'll just talk about that. It's taken from the field of music, and it basically refers to lack of harmony. Musical notes mein jab harmony nahi hoti hai, that is what is called dissonance. So this is something we keep encountering in our daily lives and on a long-term basis as well. We want something, we think of something. So nobody asked me that, there's an existing A and there's an existing B. Existing kaise ho sakta hai? So for example, let's talk about smokers. As a smoker, I like to smoke. That's A. B comes in and B tells me that there's worldwide research and there's undoubted, it's an undoubted fact that smoking kills. Smoking is not good for me. And that leads to that big red X. I'm in two minds now. मुझे करना अच्छा लगता है, but मेरे लिए अच्छा नहीं है. And that makes me feel uncomfortable, right? Or maybe आपने अपने बच्चों को बहुत सिखाया कि झूठ नहीं बोलना है, and then you find yourself lying very normally, very casually, as if it's not a very big deal. So that again is a cause of discomfort, right? If we zoom in and we go into the level of the brain, neurons, everybody understands what are neurons? And those small little brain cells which do everything. So when we zoom in for a closer examination, this is what is happening at a neurotic level. So there's information coming in, and the neuron runs to the chief neuron saying that we have received information that conflicts with the core belief. So it says, get rid of it. Now, here we need to talk about how our brain actually functions. Our brains, it's a very efficient machine, right? End of the day, the brain is a machine which has evolved to serve us for a pure survival. And the wiring of the brain is such that the efficiency of the machine is measured in two factors. The first factor is I need to give the quickest response possible to any stimulus, whether the stimulus is inside me or outside me. So it doesn't matter whether it's the best response, mind you. Understand the difference. It does not have to be the best response. It has to be the quickest response, right? And anything, any information which hampers that quickest response or tries to slow it down is just filtered out. So when I am exposing my mind to new ideas, new things, the immediate response is, this is new stuff and I have to think about it. No. Just filter it out, right? And it's an automated response. Most of the times we're not even realizing that what we are doing. And there's one slide missing. There's a slide gone missing. I don't know. Actually, I had my presentation on my Mac, and I didn't know उसके लिए अलग से connector चाहिए होता है, so I had to transfer it to PPT, and the formats are not the same. A lot of things missing actually. Okay. As a side effect of this cognitive dissonance, this discomfort that we feel, उसके बाद हम क्या करते हैं? One of the things that we do is something called confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is a bias that affects us all without a bias. What does this bias mean? This bias refers to the tendency of our brain to notice, pull out, right, or reflect, or recall only those things which coincide with our existing beliefs, which match with our existing beliefs. So if I'm given 10 options, my tendency is to choose that option which is matching the best with my current belief system and ignore everything else. So this bias towards things which already match my existing belief system, thought system, whatever ideas I've created about the world, that is my bias, right? And this bias affects us all. So what the facts say, so if you look at this small little thing, what the facts say gets undervalued. What confirms your belief, this is a foolish part of us, we just keep confirming it. And the facts which confirm my belief is overvalued. I give it more attention, I give it more importance, and I talk about it more, right? So that is the confirmation bias, and that is the reason because you keep pulling everything towards yourself which responds to your idea. It's also called the my side bias. This is my side of the world, and everything which corresponds to it, I'm going to pull it towards myself. The my side bias. So confirmation bias is like a second step after that dissonance, that unhappy state that you were in. So Calvin, I know, he puts it very eloquently for us. I'm not in denial, I'm just selective about the reality I accept. And I'm very happy that way. Most of us are. And so even if something is written all over the place, everybody is telling me that this is it, every sign is telling me, every board is telling me, every book is telling me, and yet I am not ready to believe it, I don't want to believe it. So even in that chaos of information, I will look for the things which I want to believe. I will see only what I want to see. And that is the way the brain functions. Because again, the quickest thing, I don't want to waste my thinking abilities in processing new ideas. So kuch acha chal raha hai. Okay. So what happens? How do we deal with it? Everybody knows about fight or flight, this response. So fight or flight is this instinct which has been programmed in every single person, and it comes from the time when men were in caves, and whenever you were faced with any situation, there were only two options you had. You either fight it or you fly from it, you run away. So I'm walking down in the jungle, and suddenly a lion comes in front of me. I have to take a split-second decision whether I'm going to try and fight this lion or am I going to try and run and save my life, right? You can't be like, Sher Saab, 2 minute ruko, main decide karo mujhe kya karna. That can't happen. So it's a split-second decision, and there is no way you are consciously going to think about it. It happens like this: you fly or you fight, right? What happens in a cognitive dissonance is very similar to this. Cognitive dissonance puts you in an uncomfortable state. It's a stressful state, right? The degree of the stress can vary because depending on the splash, but it's a stressful state, right? And it's a state where we feel we are under attack. So what happens? What do we do when we are under attack? We defend. Beat the enemy. Defend your position. Do what is right. Get them out of here. This is Sparta. Do everything which is possible, right? So it's the enemy and you have to fight it. So this is the automated response of the brain to fight or flight. And what are the usual manifestations? The first one, denial. नहीं ऐसा तो कुछ होता ही नहीं है. पता नहीं लोग क्या बातें कर रहे थे, ऐसा चीज़ होती ही नहीं है. अब जैसे मैडम यहाँ पे खड़े होते हैं क्या क्या बातें कर रही है, ऐसा थोड़ा कुछ होता है. मुझे तो पता है मैडम वहाँ पे क्या चल रहा है, मुझे तो पता है मेरी चॉइसेस सब क्लियर होगी. So denial, outright denial. होता ही नहीं है जी. जो चीज़ मुझे कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट कर रही है, वो चीज़ होती ही नहीं है. The second one is rejection. So it's a bit positive. आप एटलीस्ट उस चीज़ को एग्जिस्टेंस को एक्नॉलेज करो कि हाँ ये चीज़ एग्जिस्ट करती है और फिर उसको रिजेक्ट कर देते हैं. किसी काम की नहीं है, बिल्कुल गलत है, कोई सेंस ही नहीं है, लॉजिक ही नहीं है, बस मारी जा रही है. Number 3, trivialization. So a bit more positive. एग्जिस्टेंस एक्सेप्ट कर ली, वैसे भी एक्सेप्ट करिए लेकिन पुट डाउन कर. अरे तो छोटी मोटी चीज़ें हैं, इससे थोड़ी कोई फर्क पड़ता है. It's not important. हाँ कभी कभी हो जाता है, ठीक है. So you trivialize it, छोटी मोटी बातें. You try to trivialize it. Next is justification, defense. So you try to justify your stand. You try to justify what you are doing. नहीं actually मैं ये इसलिए नहीं करता. So if I'm a smoker, नहीं मैं actually smoke इसलिए करता हूँ because मुझे stress कम हो जाता है. मैं stress कम नहीं करूँगा तो मुझे और बीमारियाँ लग जाएंगी. Right? So you just try to justify your stand. And the last one, and probably the most extreme one, and the most visible one, so to say to people outside of you, is anger and aggression. So आपके साथ जो चीज़ agree नहीं करती है, you lash out in anger and aggression. There are two more ways in which the people deal with it, and they're not as negatory, so to say. First is readjustment. Readjustment means, अच्छा, belief 1, belief 2, clash है, कुछ गड़बड़ है, क्यों गड़बड़ है, अच्छा थोड़ा सा readjustment कर देते हैं, थोड़ा सा tweaking यहाँ कर दिया, हाँ अब वो fit हो रहा है, चलो अब ठीक है, हाँ now I'm comfortable, now I'm at peace. So you readjust either your existing thought or your new thought. The next one is probably the most positive one, is behavioral change, right? You bring about changes in your behavior so that discomfort that you feel, for example, a smoker might quit, right? Or whatever, right? So behavioral change is probably the most positive way that we deal with it. But behavioral change can also be negative. I can do something else as well, right? So in the market of truth, I think it's a very easy guess then which is the busier stall. Nobody wants to face the unpleasant truths. Everybody has a stake in the comforting lies. I don't want to face the truth. It's uncomfortable, right? So I'd rather just go and take a few lies and feel good about myself. छोटी सी तो जिंदगी है, ऐश करनी है. Now, on the last note for this segment of cognitive dissonance, my entire thought, my take on this topic is, let's not die unchanged. If you understand this, our brain is wired to function in a certain way which ensures our physical survival. Please understand this, physical survival. It doesn't care whether you are evolving as an emotional being or a mental being. It is purely for physical survival. And the brain has got no stakes in your evolution on a non-physical way, right? So, people ask me that, cognitive dissonance होता है, तो कौन सी बड़ी बात है? हम तो इंसान हैं. It's only human, right? Why should I be worried about it? Now, if you look at it, if you're able